Hi everybody, this is Maura Kirby here from Grace Labyrinth. I wanted to welcome you all to my first webinar that I am hosting online. And the webinar for today is called 5 Ways to Reclaim Your Inner Heroine. And what I wanted to share with you is that I will be using a PowerPoint presentation for today. And you'll still be able to see me up in the right-hand corner, but I wanted to just give you a heads up with that. And I wanted to let you know my role within my company as the founder and owner of Grace Labyrinth is that I am a spiritual coach and an intuitive guide, and I guide women on their inward journey to their true selves so they can reconnect with their self-worth, their wholeness, and their sacred power. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to get into the presentation itself. I'm going to share my screen with you. And I'm going to open it up right now. I'm going to go into view for the read mode. Okay. Now, and you're going to just see me up here in that right-hand corner. Okay. So as you can see, as we're starting the presentation, again, 5 ways to reclaim your inner heroine. My name is Maura Kirby, spiritual coach and intuitive guide with Grace Labyrinth, and today is October 26, 2017. And I want to thank all of you, anyone who's live, and also anyone who is actually watching it after it's been recorded. I really do appreciate the time that you're taking to do this. It should be around probably 20 minutes, maybe 25 minutes at the longest. So we're going to go through the slides, and I'm going to be up here in that right-hand corner until we get toward the end of the presentation. So what we're going to do is I'm going to move forward on the first slide. And I wanted to share with all of you the agenda for the presentation today. I first wanted to discuss why the inner heroine is needed, especially right now on this planet. We're then going to go through 3 common myths that are around the concept of the inner heroine and that inner power within each one of us. Then we get to the body of the presentation, where I'm going to go through 5 specific ways to reclaim your inner heroine. And if you decide, which I'd love you to stay for the whole entire presentation, I'm going to end with a really amazing bonus for each one of you that you're going to be able to incorporate and really appreciate, hopefully, at the end of the presentation. So at this time, why don't we move forward and see why the inner heroine is needed right now? Before I go into that, I actually wanted to share with you a really neat quote that I found, and this is what it says. Sometimes the strongest women are the ones who love beyond all faults, cry behind closed doors, and fight battles that nobody knows about. And it's from an unknown author. And I wanted to start off sharing that with you because when I look back probably over maybe the past 5 years, and especially the last 2 years, I really connected with how much I was seeing myself, as a victim in my life. And that's kind of why I was really drawn to do this kind of webinar on the inner heroine. I realized that I was feeling like a victim. For example, let's say if it was during the day and I didn't have the house organized, or I didn't have all my work done, I would just feel that, oh, I'm never going to have things done. I have so many things going on. But what I also found was that I ended up also playing another role within my being, which can be called the persecutor. So not only was I feeling victimized, I then had another side of myself that would say, yeah, you don't have any of the laundry done. And I had this internal battle going on between these 2 roles within myself. And it wasn't probably, maybe the past few months, I really was able to hone in on these 2 roles. And I realized that I wanted to have more in life than just going back and forth in my head with what I should be doing and what I'm not doing. And that's where I came to really connect with my inner heroine. And I really want to share with you today 5 ways that you can do it as well. So moving forward, let's figure out why the inner heroine is needed so much right now on this planet. And I was able to find Dove, the company Dove. They did some research in 2016, and they had a list of statistics that I read, and I wanted to point out two statistics that I found were very interesting and very eye-opening for me. The first one reads, 85% of women and 79% of girls opt out of important life activities, for example, like a team or a club, and engaging with family or loved ones when they don't feel good about the way they look. So I was really interested in such a high percentage right there with how they physically felt about themselves and not wanting to go out in public with that. The other information stated that almost 8 in 10, which is about 78% of both women and girls, feel some kind of pressure to never make mistakes or show weakness. So when I was reading that information and those statistics, it really honed in for me the purpose of really connecting each one of us with that inner power that we have, especially as we're getting older, but also we can reflect back on ourselves and help other women and young girls as they're going through it as well. Now, when we focus on, there are 3 common myths that can surround the concept of inner heroine, and I wanted to share each one of those with you as well. The first myth is, I need to be rescued by someone else. And I know some of you may relate to that. Growing up, I know the movies have changed a lot recently, but in the past it was, someone coming in and saving you, for like let's say the main actress, where now things are kind of shifting, where we have movies such as Wonder Woman, when you're going to have the female role is really in charge and she's the one that's saving herself. But I find sometimes when we can fall into that victim mode, that it's like, well, I need someone else to come in, and to really be able to realize that, oh wait, I can actually do things for myself and release myself from that victimhood. It can be very empowering. So that was the first myth I wanted to share with you. The second is, my personal power is found outside myself. Not so much like the first one. The first myth was more like, someone coming in and rescuing you. The second myth is more about having that power, but it's externalized. And that, of course, is unique for every single person. But I really felt it was important to highlight it, because realizing that if the power is outside of yourself versus inside, that's always going to be something that you can't turn within to try to get or to receive from yourself. So that's number 2. Number 3. I don't deserve to feel empowered. And I feel that this myth connects deeply with the concept of self-worth, feeling that you deserve to be empowered. And the whole idea of self-worth can stem from many different things, a lack of self-worth, and just keeping these 3 myths in mind may be very good as we move forward and we go into the specific reasons and the 5 ways in which the inner heroine within each of us can awaken, and we can reclaim that role within ourselves. So the 5 ways to reclaim your inner heroine. And I have a little sword there. Of course, that's not for any violence by any means. I just was trying to find something that was not, kind of friendly. And my husband said it looked like Minecraft. I'm like, that's fine. So we have the sword there to represent, the concept of the inner heroine. And the number 1 way is embracing the light and the dark within you. Now, the concept of the dark within you, you may have heard of the shadow self. And that shadow self is what happens and what we're faced with when we experience feelings that are uncomfortable. For example, fear, envy, resentment, anger, guilt, feeling anxious and worried. So what happens is when we have that confrontation with that dark side of ourselves, it can be easy sometimes to want to turn away from it and not to acknowledge it, because sometimes it's nice to really focus on the positive aspects of ourselves. But what happens when we're able to really fully embrace those emotions that tend to be uncomfortable, we're able to do it in a way where we offer ourselves compassion and love. And by doing that and looking at those feelings, let's say if we want to focus on, let's say I'm having anxiety today, instead of saying, oh, I can't believe I have that, it's saying, okay, I have it, I still love myself, And by doing so, I can break free from the chains of that darkness and those really intense feelings. And by doing so, I can then allow my inner light to shine really bright. The other thing I'm sure many of you know about is the concept of duality. We live in a world that has duality. So if there weren't ever those really, really dark, dark moments, then we wouldn't be able to see how much our inner light can shine through. So that is the first one, embracing the light and dark within you. Moving on to number 2. Allow emotions to flow through your body. Now, with this number 2, it's similar to the number 1. Just adjusting my screen a little bit, where you are faced with the emotions. Let's say, for example, fear or anger or anxiety. Some people tend to, when they're faced with these feelings, some people can, including myself, pretend that they're not there. Oh no, I'm fine. Everything's fine. I don't feel anger. No, everything's great. Or they will say, oh yeah, I'm really angry, and okay, I'm fine now. But when we're doing things like that, those emotions can easily get stuck within our bodies, and that can be at the physical level, where, you know, if you've ever had a lot of stress, you start to get, you know, obviously the shoulder pain. Some people get that. It can also be at the emotional level too, where even if let's say we ignore the fear that we're feeling, it's still there, buried inside ourselves, and the next time we feel fearful, it could be even more intense. And also our spiritual levels. If you have a connection with spirit or higher self or God or whatever, a higher power, in that way, when you are having those really heavy feelings sometimes, and I've had this before, where when I felt so like kind of angry or depressed, I had a harder time connecting with, let's say, angels, because I just felt just a heaviness overall. But by allowing those emotions to flow through your body, now it's not so much like, oh, I feel fearful, 5 minutes it flowed through, and now I feel great. I mean, it can happen that fast, but sometimes it can take a long time. But I feel that just acknowledging those feelings, that in itself would allow them to flow through. And then by doing that, you then have the option to really and truly embrace and allow, let's say, happiness and joy and love to really shine through and become even more intense than it would have been if you had suppressed those emotions that were more painful. So that's number 2. So I'm going to take a sip of water. Let's move on to number 3. Okay, number 3 is face your fears with an empowered heart. Now, similar also to number 2, because you're still, you're allowing yourself to come face to face with your fears. Now, the concept of the empowered heart is you're turning within to that inner guidance, that inner wisdom where your feelings are lying, but you also are able to touch base with your sense of courage and your sense of inner strength. Because when you're able to remember that you had those qualities within yourself and in your being, when you're faced with those fears, and it's okay to be fearful, you're able to then also say, hey, okay, I'm fearful, but I am empowered, and I do have courage, and I can move through this fear and really work on what's going on in my life. So that's number 3. Moving on to number 4. Remember you are whole and worthy for simply being you. Now, when we think back to the 3 other ways that we just discussed, so we talked about embracing the light and dark within us. We talked about allowing those emotions to flow through our bodies. And we also discussed the concept of facing our fears with an empowered heart. Even though we have experienced our shadow self and have had like emotions that were not very comfortable, at the core of our being, we are whole and we are pure. So what happens is when we connect with our true selves that lies within ourselves, that true self can shine a light on those feelings that we've had, let's say of feeling unworthy, of feeling broken, of feeling not good enough. Because when we connect with our true self, and that's who we really are, that inner light from our true self can then shine, and we can see that we are whole, no matter what's going on in our outer world, and we are not broken. So that's where I get the concept of just simply being you. It's who you are from the beginning. It's your core, it's your true self. So that's number 4. Now moving on to the last one, number 5, is be yourself all the time. And when I first thought of that concept, I was like, wow, that's a really great concept. I'm just going to be myself. I'm going to be myself, and my inner heroine is just going to show up. Well, I then asked myself, hold on, well, what does that really mean? What does it mean to be myself all the time? So when thinking of being yourself all the time, it's really living as your true self. And we just discussed, obviously, the concept of your true self. And here I'm going to bring in the idea of being really authentic and living from a place of authenticity. And that place of authenticity can be in everything that you do, that you say, and also that you think. Now, in light of those two concepts, the true self and being authentic, I then asked myself, okay, again, that's great. I love the true self concept, and authenticity sounds really wonderful. But what does that mean to be authentic? Obviously, it can be different for each person. I would like to share with you about 7 points in which I can see authenticity surface in someone's life based on these sentences. First one, it's living your life without compromising your inner truths. So it's really following what you feel is true for yourself. The next, it's knowing that the opinions and well-intentioned advice of others are not your truths. Now, this can happen with family and friends. We have great relationships. They love us very much. And sometimes what they feel is really, really good advice, which it is from their perspective. It just may not be exactly what we would need. So it's really honoring what's good for us. And that kind of leads into the third point. It's doing what is best for you, not what others think is best for you. And that can be sometimes challenging when you have people in your life who may feel strongly about something and you feel strongly about something else. But it's really connecting with your true self and really doing what's best for you. Fourth, it's standing outside of the norms of society and knowing the best ways to honor and respect yourself. And that can be very specific to each person. It can be based on, a community. It can be based on a global community, the world at large, what we see on TV. But it's really touching in on that inner part of yourself and you knowing truly what is the best way for you to honor and respect yourself. The next is it's taking time needed to connect with your inner voice. And that inner voice can also be viewed as maybe like your intuition. It's that inner knowing that when you are living your life in an authentic manner, you're able to really hone in on, oh, that feels right, or that doesn't feel right. So you're following what's true to yourself, and that inner voice can really come into play to really lead you in the right direction. Next is it's okay with the ups and downs of life through tears and smiles. And with that being said, it can refer back to our first point, which was the light and dark, which is the dualistic nature of what we live in. And, obviously we know without the downs, we wouldn't really understand fully how great we feel with the ups. And I've had many days where, I've had ups and downs in a day, or I've had just all downs. Some days are like, well, I'm wearing my PJs all day. And it's going to be a down day. My son's like, oh, it's a down day. I'm like, it is. So it's just really going with the flow and saying it's okay to have those days. It's okay to have those weeks, and just being easier on yourself and smiling and laughing and crying, which can occur sometimes all at the same time. Now, the last is it's about being strong and vulnerable at the same time and loving yourself for it. So I do feel that with this last sentence, it also involves that courage and inner strength. Because if we're going to really connect with our inner heroine and go out and be courageous, it's going to put us in a real vulnerable position. And that's not always easy, but it really allows us to show our strength and just move forward in our lives. So we are coming to the end of the webinar, and I want to thank you all so much for sticking with me throughout it. So for the bonus for today, what I'm going to do is, it has to do with the question, are you ready to live the life your heart always wanted? Now, with that being said, what I would like to do today is to have you take part, if you're open to it. It's a guided journey, kind of like just guided imagery right now, to connect with your inner heroine through every beat of your heart. If that's something that you feel comfortable doing, what I'm going to ask you to do is to obviously just sit where you are. You can close your eyes, you can keep them open. And I'm going to start the guided imagery. So I invite you now to place your left hand over your heart and your right hand on top of your left hand. As you feel your heart beat, close your eyes and listen for the quiet and empowering voice of your inner heroine as she asks you, are you ready to live the life your heart always wanted? She is there encouraging you to venture out as you she is there encouraging you to venture out as your empowered true self. As you connect deeply with her, you realize that she is you and you are her. No longer separate, as you both are now a unified force. As you breathe deeply in and out, you say quietly to yourself, I am safe. I am protected. I am worthy. I am whole. I am empowered. And I am loved always. And as this guided imagery is coming to a close, your life and how you choose to live it is in your hands and in your heart. Thank you. So everyone, for the last slide, I wanted to just say thank you so much for watching this webinar. It's my first one. And as you can see on the screen, I just wanted to show you my website, which is gracelabyrinth.com, as well as my Facebook link, which is facebook.com/GraceLabyrinthJourney. I'm also going to stop the sharing. And just personally, I want to thank all of you so much for taking the time and just really connecting with me and listening to the webinar. So I'm wishing you all a wonderful week. Thank you so much.